Hi, I'm Amy Tan, and I'm a current junior at North Quincy High. I'm also North Quincy High School Committee representative. I'm part of the high school soccer team, the Quincy North Quincy Marching Band, and obviously a member of Quincy Votes. A bit more about Quincy Votes. Quincy Votes is committed to objective, impartial voter information. Our mission statement reads, our nonpartisan group aims to partner with community members in Quincy, particularly those from underrepresented groups, to engage in local issues and to participate in the electoral process. Quincy Votes will never endorse any candidates or parties. We aim to provide accurate, unbiased information for voters to make their own informed choices. That said, Quincy Votes is made up of residents who, as individuals, tend to be civically engaged. Many individuals volunteer with local issues-based groups, serve on their children's schools, parent-teacher organizations, and regularly watch and speak at city meetings. Some volunteer with local political campaigns, and some run for office themselves. You can find more about Quincy Votes election information on quincyvotes.org. And I'll hand it over to Liz.
Thanks, Amy. I'm Liz Speakman. I'm the president of Quincy Votes and an active community member, a mom of 2 children who are in the Quincy Public Schools. And we're really excited to be here tonight to talk to some of the candidates for City Council here in Quincy. Our format for tonight is going to be each candidate's going to have 1 minute for an opening statement. We're going to ask 2 questions that every candidate across the district will get the same 2 questions, and then we'll have 2 ward-specific questions for each ward. All these, and then a closing statement. All these questions have been sourced from local community social media outreach to find out what is it that's on the minds and hearts of residents across Quincy. So we're going to get started with Ward 6 and Councillor Harris and Mrs. Riley. So we did a coin toss to decide who's going to go first. Mrs. Riley will have the opening statement, and you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Amy. Thank you to QATV and Quincy Votes for hosting this forum tonight. My name is Deborah Riley, and I am candidate for Ward 6 City Council. I'm excited to have an opportunity to talk to you tonight, and I'm going to focus on the issues that I'm hearing as I'm walking the streets of Ward 6. Most importantly is about communication. The lack of communication over the last 8 years has been deafening. And it's interesting that our current councilor actually ran on improving communication. That's something that I'm hearing a lot about. The other thing I'd like to focus on is residential tax credit. That's something that I'm hearing desperately that residents need, as well as over 55 housing, year-round ferry service. There's a number of things that I would like to work on if given the opportunity, and I look forward to having the opportunity to earn your vote this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Riley. Councillor Harris.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here tonight. Been a resident since 1997 of Quincy, and my parents were here before I was. During my time over the last 7.5 years, I've experienced many different campaigns. This is probably one of the most unique because we're up against one of the biggest battles that is up in the forefront, and that's the Long Island Bridge. And if anybody, the more I hear about lack of communication, I want that to be kept repeated because the people know me here. I wouldn't have been elected twice, and then a 3rd time I didn't have an opponent. Because if there wasn't the communication, I wouldn't have won 2 times. So over my period of time. So I want to keep hearing that because the folks that support me will really understand where it's coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris.
Our first question will be for Councillor Harris to answer first. It's, increasingly, people are struggling to afford to live in Quincy. What policies would you support to help make it affordable to live here?
Well, obviously, we already have in place the affordable housing where any of the development puts into a pool that basically helps. As far as affordability, that, the real estate situation we have is we're booming. The city is succeeding. It's gone from, just in the time I was been here, the property value of my house has gone crazy. You know, people are making money by selling their houses. And unfortunately, we can just do so much. The affordable housing, there's some great stuff going on down in the affordable housing down in Ward 2, which is great. And we have, in North Quincy, we do have transit-orientated housing at the North Quincy Station, where it can make it affordable to be able to go to work, whether it's in the South Shore or the North Shore or to Boston, where you don't need a vehicle, which if you don't have to have a vehicle, there's an expense that can help you be able to afford to live in Quincy. And there's a lot of great places, and there's more to come on our red line as we move on, because there's more plans of that happening. So thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Mrs. Harris?
Riley.
Oh, sorry.
That's
sorry,
okay.
sorry.
Yes, as a real estate agent for 16 years, I am intimately aware of how difficult it is for people to have affordable housing. The first thing I'd like to see the city really take a strong look at is offering a residential tax exemption, which I had mentioned in my opening statement. The City of Boston does it, and what it does is not only does it give people a relief from their tax bill, but more importantly, it promotes owner occupancy. Many of the new development that we've had is more transient people. The people are renting high-end apartments, are not staying there for years and years. They're usually there for a year, maybe two, and then they move on to another location. The other thing that I think is important is that we need to really start to adhere to the 10% development, the 10% affordable and new development. The fee in lieu of is nice, but money doesn't provide housing unless you build it. So I'd really like to see, and I've seen it in many other communities, including Braintree and Situate, where if you're developing 40 units, then 4 of them have to be affordable. And it really creates a more diverse community of development. And finally, I'd like to see some help for first-time home buyers. I see 20-somethings with good jobs, college degrees, no debt, and not able to really afford to move out of their parents' homes. So I'd like to see help with down payment assistance, not just low income, but moderate income. Our teachers, our public servants, they are not in a position to purchase property in the city right now. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question, Mrs. Riley will answer first, and then Councillor Harris. And again, this is a question that all of our candidates across Quincy are going to be getting. So what can the City Council do to address resident concerns over overdevelopment?
Yeah, that's a tough question. We obviously need housing. There's no doubt that the inventory, the lack of inventory, is what contributes to the high prices and high demand. But I think that we need to do it a little bit more as part of a master plan. I think we need to really look at overlay and really decide where are the areas that we can develop, and develop it with a bigger plan for our residents. I also think that we need over 55 housing desperately, because then we can get people, older people who don't want to mow and shovel, we can get them to put their homes in the market, offer them up for the up-and-coming buyers, and be able to, to have those people stay in the community that they've spent a lot of time in. So those are some of the things that I think are important.
Thank you. Councillor Harris?
Well, the point of the over 55 housing, I'd welcome that in a heartbeat if I was able to get out of my mortgage and be able to live comfortably. But there are so many components in order for that to happen, and realistically, where, there are so many things. The overdevelopment, one of the things I did on the council was with several of the other councilors was stopping the Airbnbs from taking place. And that's especially, there's been in my ward and other wards. New York City adopted it after Quincy did, when you think about it. People are building to make money. And when you have an Airbnb that's, has people coming and going, and they're being sold online, they're not being sold, they're being rented online for just weeks or 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We have a law that says 30-day minimum. So we have neighborhoods, resident A, people who've invested their whole lives, such as myself, to have to deal with people who just come in and are just going to party and not care about what's going on in our neighborhoods. And that, when you talk about that, there are people that aren't talking out about this. I've talked out and spoke highly about, we had a tragedy in my community over an Airbnb. And we're fighting hard for it. I have to be careful with it because there are lawsuits going on right now because we're finding people that are not adhering to it. We have other parts of the city that are also having people where it just turns into a party, no ownership, people who've invested their whole lives in their house, and they have to deal with people from all over the world. And you know, there's a time and a place for it, and it certainly isn't in our resident A areas in Quincy.
Okay, thank you so much.
Our third question will be answered first by Councillor Harris. It follows. The City of Boston plans to rebuild the bridge from Squantum to Long Island and resume substance abuse treatment there. While there is an urgent need in Boston and surrounding communities for substance abuse treatment, many Squantum residents are concerned about traffic and other issues. What can and should the city do about plans to rebuild the bridge?
Well, there's only one thing I have to say about that, and the majority of the people that I represent agree with me, and there is no bridge. There's been plenty of time. It's been 6 years. The City of Boston has been negligent. They could have already had ferries out to the island. They haven't done it. They have been non-transparent. They declared the island an economic opportunity zone. And simply put, what does that mean? It clearly means that they want to develop the island and to go through our city streets, because people will be going through, and it will affect all of the city, especially with that, East Squantum and Quincy Shore Drive. You're talking about, they refuse to even to tell us that there's a plan. There is no plan. Every time they need an excuse, when the press gets hard about the Mass and Cass area, all they say is, oh, we're going to develop the Long Island, and we're going to do that. Well, since it's been by Martin Walsh, former mayor, announced, I've been fighting it with the administration, with help from the city council and many other sources that we've brought in. Not one shovel of dirt has been yet to happen. I continue and push. I will fight to my last breath about it. There is no bridge because development makes developers foam at the mouth for what would be millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, as well as large real estate companies. Thank you.
Mrs. Riley?
Thank you. There's no doubt that the situation at Mass and Cass is heartbreaking. I drive through there at least once a week, and I see it. And those people are not waiting for a bridge. There needs to be a solution to that tragedy, but it's not the people that are waiting for services are not going to wait for a bridge. So it's disappointing that Michelle Wu did not follow through on her campaign promise to explore ferry service, water service, and I believe that if the only means of access were a bridge, it would absolutely be detrimental to the neighborhood. There's no reason why they couldn't have continued services with ferry service so that at least there was some continuity out there, and for whatever reason they haven't been able to do that. So I think that's certainly an area that Councilor Harris and I can agree on, that a bridge is not the best means and certainly not a solution to the tragedy at Mass and Cass.
Thank you. Our next question is one that was submitted by a resident of Ward 6, and we'll take a listen to that now.
Hi, my name is Susan McPherson, and I am a resident of North Quincy. The mayor has mentioned potentially taking over Squantum Point Park from DCR. The Marina Bay Business Association has already said that they would support the city taking more control over this property. How would you ensure that this land remains open and that Quincy residents will have priority over business developers?
So this question is going to Mrs. Riley first. You have 2 minutes.
So I've heard only briefly of this plan or idea, and it's just another example of a lack of communication, because really there hasn't been anything that I'm aware of that's been communicated out to residents. There's been no input from the community. You know, it's an underutilized parcel from the state, but you know, I don't know what the cost would be for the city to take it over, what their plans would be for it. So it's certainly something that's intriguing and would be worth exploring, but I have absolutely no information to go on that.
Thank you. Councilor Harris?
Well, that has never come across the city council, but there was, I believe, some communication with Governor Baker and Mayor Koch. I believe that the mayor wanted to take over and be able to have control of all of the state roads, especially along Wollaston Beach, and to be able to maintain, because if you go to Squantum Point Park, it's not maintained, and we don't have the resources to take care of it. It's a beautiful area. When you end an evening, my wife and myself, a couple of times when we were a little bit younger, we'd walk out, we'd have chairs with us. It's quite a walk. I should do more of that, but it's a beautiful to see the sun go down there. It's a beautiful park that is underutilized, as my opponent has said, but it has never come across. And so as far as lack of communication, it's just probably just folks that are hearing folks that work for the state or work for somebody that has heard that there was some talk of it. I mean, nothing could it take place like that unless it went through the city council, and has not. There's been no public record will not show any communication to me over that. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much. So those are our formal questions from residents. Our last piece is the closing, and so you each have 1 minute for closing. So Councilor Harris, you're up next, and then Mrs. Riley.
And I thought the end.
Oh,
was
did I
good.
mix it up? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Mrs. Riley. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yes, well, thank you again for having us here tonight. This has really been a wonderful journey, actually, just being a part of this whole process and having the opportunity to run for City Council. I've really enjoyed walking the streets of Ward 6, talking to people, and really listening. I've been on a listening campaign, and when you start to hear the same things over and over about property taxes, about traffic, about overdevelopment, you know, it is my hope that I'll be able to offer some positive impact and be the voice of the people of Ward 6. It's not easy to you know, to please everybody all the time, and so my hope would be that I can at least represent the majority of the people and do so in a positive way and with positive energy, and do it to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilor Harris.
Thank you, and thank you again for having us. And as I just heard, to represent the majority of the people, it's not that. It's to represent everybody. I heard traffic. Every morning I go to work at downtown Boston, and if you're not by 6:15 heading toward Neponset, now it's back, as I've said. COVID was the only good thing about COVID was traffic. There wasn't traffic. People are made to go back to work, and I only want to say is that I will be fighting to the end of my day, because if you think traffic is bad now, it'll be just unbearable to a point that our seniors, our people that are going to doctor's appointments in Boston, it's just right now it's horrific. But I've been fighting against the Long Island Bridge. If the bridge happens, it would be disastrous.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mrs. Riley and Councilor Harris, for being with us tonight, taking time out of your busy schedules to spend some time answering questions from our residents. We really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you out on the trail.
Thank you.
And now we have Ward 2 candidates, Councillor Anthony Andronico and Mr. Richard Ash. They'll each have 1 moment for their opening statements and then 2 minutes for each of the 4 questions and then 1 minute for their closing. After a coin toss, Councillor Andronico is going to go first, so you have 1 minute for your opening.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say thanks to QATV and to Quincy Votes for hosting us here tonight, and everyone watching at home for tuning in. My name is Anthony Andronico, and for the past 3 years, I've had the privilege of being your Ward 2 counselor. 6 or 7 years ago now, I decided to enter public service. During that time, I successfully ran for a seat on the school committee and took a job up at the State House as a communications director, working to make the Commonwealth a better place to call home. Since that time, I've had the opportunity to transition and become your ward counselor. And during our short time together, I've had the privilege of passing a plan to repave 6.5 miles of Ward 2 roads over the next 5 years, make improvements to our community spaces like Faxon Park and the Fort River Clubhouse, and most importantly is making sure that when you reach out that I return your call and make sure I address your concerns. We have more work to do to make Quincy Point and Penns Hill an even better place to call home, and I look forward to discussing my record more with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andronico. Next we have Mr. Richard Ash, 1 minute.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Richard Ash. I would like to first thank Quincy Access Television and Quincy Votes for the opportunity to be here this evening and answer some questions related to both the ward and the city. I'm a third-generation, lifelong Quincy Point resident. I'm an attorney. I practice civil litigation, zoning, family law, and land use. For the last 3 years, I've been the president of the Ward 2 Civic Association. I'm also an ambassador of the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm a member and board member of many local nonprofits across the city. I look forward to discussing the issues with everybody here tonight relating to both smart development and preservation, senior safety, and a host of other issues that have come up throughout the months, knocking on all of your doors since the beginning of the summer. And I look forward to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So this first question, Mr. Ash will answer first. Increasingly, people are struggling to afford to live in Quincy. What policies would you support to help make it affordable to live here?
Thank you for the question. While door knocking this summer and talking to many residents, I know that the cost of living and the cost of both buying a home and renting an apartment or a home here in Quincy have increased over the years. As the owner of a multifamily home with my mother and my aunt as the tenants downstairs, I know how hard it is to keep your family in the area and in the city that they would like to stay in and be in. Many of my lifelong friends have been priced out of Quincy and now live elsewhere down the South Shore. And I would be a proponent for both a residential tax credit, or tax break rather, and also in doing some research and talking to folks, I know that the seniors in our city are eligible for certain tax credits and tax breaks. And through some research, some legal research that I did have the opportunity to conduct, I know that those amounts and the breaks, the percentages, and the dollar amounts have not been increased in quite some time. So I'd be interested in both looking at the amounts for the seniors, there's one prong for 62 and above and another for 70-plus-year-old seniors. I'd be interested in engaging the state legislature to look at those amounts, those dollar amounts, and also the percentages to give our seniors an added tax credit or an added tax break. Hopefully, both with the residential tax credit and an increase in our senior tax abatements, that will allow our homeowners to both to hopefully have less of an obligation on their mortgage, and then as a byproduct, charge less in rent. And that will, I hope that the aggregate effect of that will help to keep families and individuals in Quincy that would like to stay here and be a part of our community. Thank you.
Councillor Andronico.
I appreciate the question. As someone who just purchased their first home at the beginning of January of this year, I can tell you firsthand that it's getting more and more difficult to afford to buy in Quincy, even afford to continue to rent within Quincy, especially with the way that inflation has gone, the cost of living, and of course our interest rates on houses themselves. But over the past couple of years, folks have reached out asking what can the Quincy City Council actually do to help increase affordability and make sure more residents who grew up here can continue to call Quincy home. One of the first things that I was able to do as your counselor was co-sponsor an ordinance to actually implement the homeowner property tax exemption. And that's something that Boston has, Malden has, and a few other municipalities in the greater Boston area, where if you are in an owner-occupied home and you have lived there, I believe it's for more than 10 years or more than 15 years, depending. There's some local control over the number of years. You can see an up to 35% reduction in your property taxes as a thank you, so to speak, from your local government for investing in the city that you actually live in and spend your money in. And moving forward, my hope is that we'll get to a point with the level of commercial development where we're able to actually see that change, and we could slowly phase in the residential property tax exemption. So instead of doing all 35% all at once, we did a few percentage points a year till it was fully phased in as a good faith effort to show the people of Quincy that we are taking this issue seriously. In addition to that, it also means continuing to invest in affordable housing and using the funding in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for projects like veterans housing, projects like low-income and senior housing. In addition, that means partnering with developers for more projects like the one on East Harwood Street where the Watson is, which is workforce housing, that sweet spot in between where you're not necessarily well off, but you're not destitute either. You work for a living and you go maybe paycheck to paycheck, something along those lines as well. So I think my record has shown that I take this issue seriously, and I understand that we have more work to do, and I'm committed to doing that with you.
Our next question came from residents. So Councillor Andronico will go first. The question is, what can the City Council do to address resident concerns about overdevelopment? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you for the question. This is another one that I know folks have been concerned about, especially within Quincy Point and Ward 2. Back this past spring and winter, I did co-sponsor a resolve asking the administration to do a full citywide review of our zoning codes and our zoning maps. As most folks know in the Point, a lot of it is zoned for multifamilies. It's mostly two-family homes historically within that neighborhood. But what we're seeing more and more are people taking advantage of the existing zoning code and instead building 3-story, 3- and 4-unit buildings instead. And that's causing some little bit of overcrowding within the neighborhoods, leading to parking issues, and even just a health issue related to rats going through trash and different things like that. So that's why I co-sponsored the resolve asking the administration to do a review of our codes so that we could get to a place where you actually have a voice in what zoning looks like within your neighborhood and what you're okay with moving forward in terms of development, so that we get to a place that makes sense for every neighborhood within Ward 2. And I think that if we stay on that track, that we'll be able to make progress in the next year. I understand that local government sometimes is a little slower than everyone would like, but this is a priority for me moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Liz, could you repeat the question?
Sure thing. What can the City Council do to address resident concerns about overdevelopment?
Thank you for the question on overdevelopment. Citywide and with relation specifically to Ward 2, I know that everybody is, at a certain point with the development where a lot of people would like for the development to pause and to see what projects are in the pipeline and take a step back. I can understand those concerns as an attorney and with my knowledge of zoning laws and the city charter. I know that there are certain asks that people might go to the zoning board, and there are certain things that people might get aggravated with or frustrated with that are allowed by law, and they don't understand what we can argue at the zoning board and what we can't. I've taken great pleasure in helping some of my neighbors through some of those processes with respect to proposed developments in the area, whether that be just educating on what is allowed by law and what is allowed by right, and what we can argue at the zoning board. I would certainly sponsor a resolve of the zoning code. I know recently a lot of the issues with respect to zoning ordinances and the zoning code have come up by way of marijuana retailers. That's been in the news lately. And we do have Quincy's first marijuana retailer in Ward 2 with 2 other proposals, at least that I know of right now. And so I believe that a thorough review of the zoning code is necessary for many reasons, but also with respect to the recent news, marijuana retailers and overdevelopment in general. One of my priorities is a rehabilitation of Washington Street, which I would like to see some smart development and bringing in good new businesses that our residents will appreciate and frequent, especially the stretch from Fall River Bridge to convenient MD. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ash, you'll be answering this question first. How can public safety be improved in Ward 2?
Thank you for the question, Amy. With the question, public safety in Ward 2. I have a good relationship with our community officers, and I know a lot of them are available by phone, by text or by call. That is very helpful, and I appreciate that relationship. Recently, with respect to safety, as many know and as has been a part of my platform, is really senior safety. And I recently had the opportunity to work with the tenants at 1000 Southern Artery and implement security measures there, namely the new security cameras and a new key fob system. So again, that was something, an opportunity for new safety measures to be brought into that building. I would certainly help other residents with specific safety measures. And other than that, I'm having a good relationship with your officers and being able to reach out. And for those that can't, knowing that their ward counselor can reach out for them or on their behalf, I would certainly be willing to do that. With respect to road safety and public safety, I know that on Quincy Ave, some more lighting, I think, is necessary, or I know is necessary from the residents. The city recently implemented bike lanes, put bike lanes on Quincy Ave, and there's some construction going on there right now as well. So I would like to see some more lighting on in that area of the city for the bicyclists that might be using those paths. And with respect to our open and green spaces, bringing more life into areas like the beaches or like Faxon Park can hopefully, and the goal is, if you build it, they will come, and with more people using the spaces, there will be less safety issues. Thank you.
Councilor Andronico?
Could you repeat the question, please?
How can public safety be improved in Ward 2?
Sure. Public safety, whether we're talking about Ward 2, City of Quincy, State of Massachusetts, is always an ongoing and evolving issue. And as part of that, I think it's important that people know that when they reach out to me, they reach out to the Ward 2 Community Police Officer, Steve Cleary, that we'll get back to them to help address their concerns. And as part of that effort, tomorrow, but by the time this airs yesterday, I'll have hosted a community coffee hour with Officer Cleary over by McKay's, just to talk with residents to see what are their concerns, what are their issues, what have they noticed could be improved and updated. But in regards to safety overall, some of the things that we've been able to do very recently at the council meeting this past Monday, we approved an ordinance to implement a 4-way stop over at Bradford and Endicott Street so that people don't keep having accidents over there, whether you're a pedestrian or a vehicle. We implemented a flashing crosswalk beacon, the first net new flashing crosswalk beacon in all of Quincy this year on Southern Artery by Presidential Estates in the south wing of 1000 Southern Artery. We've continued to do traffic studies to make sure to see if we need to implement increased speed restrictions for motorists or implement a no cut-through area for specific neighborhoods. And we've also talked about improvements up at Faxon Park, whether it's more lighting over in that area. What can we do so that we attract more folks from the beginning of the day to the end, so that some activity up there that has caused some concern over the years ceases moving forward. So moving ahead, I think it's just important that folks know that when they reach out to me and they reach out to Officer Cleary, that we're always there to hear them out and make sure that we do right by the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. So our last question, we'll start with Councilor Andronico. The question is, what improvements are needed to parks in Ward 2, and how would you help ensure that they get done?
I'm a big fan of this question in particular. So the two largest community spaces that I can kind of speak to are Faxon Park, and then the Fall River Clubhouse / Fall River Field. So over at Faxon Park, we had another community meeting over the summer just to talk about some of the funding that had been set aside for improvements over there, and just talking through the plan that Parks has in place to make sure that the planned improvements are actually what the community wants to see, because we don't want to get ahead of ourselves with improvements over there. In terms of Faxon Park, just this past month, we had Dave Murphy order the new pavilion that's going to be installed in the upcoming spring. We were able to talk about some additional trail improvements, trail signage, making sure folks can use that. We've made improvements with a new disc golf course. We have outdoor ping pong tables over there. And there are a few more improvements that we can make, including a centrally located restroom, so that whether you're at the playground, you're up doing frisbee golf, or you're up by the ping pong tables or just hiking, that you can easily access that new facility. And I think that'll attract some more folks moving forward. The other one is the Fall River Clubhouse. That's been closed at least part-time for about 2 years now. And the main reason for that is just the number of structural issues that have come up every time we open up a wall, every time we look under the floorboards. And over the course of the years, we've added more staffing to our public buildings team to make sure that they have the manpower that they need to address all of the projects that we have going on within the city of Quincy. So moving forward, I know the Fall River Clubhouse is partially open at this point in time, but we're just about done with the new kitchenette space and making sure that everything on that side is taken care of, as well as the new ADA compliant bathrooms, which are open at the Fall River Clubhouse. But outside of that, whenever someone has an issue or concern with a park, you feel free to reach out to us to make sure that we can improve your area of Quincy. Thank you.
Thank you. Liz, could you repeat the question,
Sure
please?
thing. Yep. What improvements are needed to parks in Ward 2, and how would you help ensure that they get done?
Thank you. As part of one of my top priorities, part of my campaign is smart development, and with bringing new businesses into Washington Street and other areas also comes with a component related to keeping our green spaces green and our neighborhoods quiet. Through the Civic Association over the last 3 years, we actually purchased a shade structure for Mount Street Beach, and that is and thanks to the state delegation and the earmarked stipend that we've received each year for the last 2 years. And that is constructed, it's there down at the beach, and I think people have really enjoyed it. Also at Fall River, there is an inclusive playground, which opened in the fall of 2017, and right after that began the construction to the Fall River Clubhouse. That construction has gone on for quite a while. I can appreciate it's an older building. I know Commissioner Hines has been working very hard to get that open as soon as possible. The community hasn't seen very much by way of updates or what's going on at the clubhouse. Recently, I know there was a local yoga studio is doing some classes there. I love to see that as well. With the Faxon Park improvements, the similar sentiments. The Faxon Park improvements were talked about some years ago, and while I can appreciate the COVID and the city's timeline, the lack of updates with respect to those two big projects in the ward are a cause for pause, at least for me, and I know for many residents. I know that the Faxon Park improvements are coming in, and I can't wait to see them. With respect to the bathrooms, I did recently talk with the Parks Department. I know we have new bathrooms at Fall River Field as well that are very rarely unlocked and usable. So if we're going to put a lot of money into the bathrooms at Faxon Park, I would like to see them open during the summer hours, summer months during the day, akin to Wollaston Beach.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, you're going to have 1 minute for your closing statement. Mr. Ash, you'll be going first.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy. As a lifelong Ward 2 resident, as an attorney, having my family here for generations and generations, I am uniquely positioned to be your next Ward 2 councillor and represent the past, present, and the future of this city at this important time. I know traditionally a long line of very hardworking councillors have had this seat. I look forward to picking up where they left off, and I hope for your vote and for your support on November 7th. Thank you.
Councillor Andronica.
Thank you. And thank you again to QATV and Quincy Votes for hosting us here tonight, and for all of you at home for tuning in. I appreciate the time we shared together tonight to talk about my record and why I'm the best choice to continue serving Ward 2. Now, I entered public service 6 or 7 years ago, and in that time, what I've learned is that hard work beats making headlines 10 out of 10 times. And in our short time together, I've proven through my record, through passing a plan to repave our roadways, investing in our community spaces, and making sure that when you reach out with a question that I get back to you with an answer, that this is the right choice to move forward. Now, I understand that we have more work to do to make Quincy Point, Penns Hill, and everywhere in between an even better place to call home, and I'm committed to doing that, and I look forward to working with you to make our community an even better place. I ask for your vote on Tuesday, November 7th, so we may continue our work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the candidates for Ward 2, Councilor Andronico and Mr. Ash. We appreciate you taking the time and come and talk to us and answer questions that we got from residents. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And up next, we have the candidates for Ward 4, Quincy City Council, Councilor Devine and Mr. Matthew Lyons. Welcome. We're happy to have you here this evening. You're each going to have 1 minute for an opening statement, and we're going to start with Mr. Lyons.
Okay.
You're up.
Hi, my name is Matthew Lyons. I'm a 36-year resident of West Quincy. I'm also a 36-year employee of Verizon. I'm a fiber splicer of Verizon and the legislative director for my union, IBEW 2222. I'm running for this race to give Ward 4 people honest and integrity representation in many of the issues that face the ward right now, including the 99-year lease up at the Granite Links, which is an ongoing issue, even though it's been withdrawn. Traffic issues is all the way from East Milton Square to Archbishop Williams. Overdevelopment, as well as marijuana. Recreational marijuana stores going into our ward, where they're not going into anywhere else in the city. I think these things need to be addressed, and I think I'm the right person for the job, and I ask for your vote on November 7th, and thank you very much. Can't wait for your questions.
Thank you. Councilor Devine, opening statement. You have 1 minute.
Hi, how are you? My name is James Devine. I've lived at Ward 4 at Cross Street for the last 19 years with my wife, my son, and my daughter. They've gone through all the school systems. I've been your counselor now for just 8 months, and I've been working very hard. I've been learning exactly how to do everything that I can even imagine. I've created a lot of great relationships. Speaking of the marijuana, we've already created a resolve to try and work on that so that we don't have all those that are trying to pop up in our ward. But most of all, I'm trying to take care of all the small things. Everything that you need is something that's very important to you, specific. So we'll get going here and answer all the questions. And thank you very much for your time, and thank you, Quincy Votes.
Thank you. So our first question will be answered first by Councilor Devine. Increasingly, people are struggling to afford to live in Quincy. What policies would you support to help make it affordable to live here?
Okay. Policies. I would, well, we have a community program that we receive money that goes into our housing. So right now earlier this year, I was at a ribbon cutting for Neighborhood Works, which they are a nonprofit that does housing for low income, true low income, 30% and lower. They just put 18 units online. We already tried to approve to make sure that they're going to get another 24, hopefully in the unit next door. Which is huge, and that's on Winter Street. And while I was there for that ribbon cutting, I said to them right away, I said, if you can get anything like that in Ward 4, I'd love for you to do something like that, because low-income housing can't just be in a single area, because if somebody's uncle or aunt or, you know, elderly parent wants to be near them and they're in Ward 4, I'm like, I'd love to have some of that true low-income housing there. And with that being said, I got a phone call the other day, and we're hoping to get maybe 32 units over in the Ward 4 area for true low-income housing, so I'm supporting that. And then also on Spear Street, we have a program that we're saving a historical building, and I believe we're going to have 8 units there that will be dedicated just to our Quincy residents, because it's funded from our city itself. So we don't have to take anybody from anywhere else. It can be just Quincy residents. So I'm going to make sure to follow on things like that, especially where it's a double win, like a historical building and housing for people. It's 10 seconds left, so and it's also handicap accessible. So those types of things I would like to make sure to go forward. Thank you.
Mr. Lyons?
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Yeah. Increasingly, people are struggling to afford to live in Quincy. What policies would you support to help make it affordable to live here?
So I'm not exactly sure about what exact policies I would have to institute with this, but in our ward, Ward 4 it's an area that has a lot of apartment buildings, a lot of people that need help with their rent, and as far as more affordable housing. It's a common problem all throughout the greater Boston area. The real estate in the area is just out of control, and our city, as well as our ward, is being targeted for more housing, not necessarily affordable housing. But a lot of times when I'm out knocking on doors, a lot of the people older people who don't have children anymore in their houses, always mention that we don't have any 55 and older communities where they can sell their house that's already paid for. They can go and buy, they want to stay in Quincy, and they want to be able to live in 55 and older communities where they can stay in Quincy and still afford to live there. There are other things in the areas like the Brewers Corner area, where a lot of the apartment buildings there, you have to pay for parking. The rent is high enough. I just don't know if it's a good idea to be charging a premium for parking for people when they're already paying a premium for their rent. The people that have a hard time paying their rent as it is, and then you add on those costs to it, as well as adding a burden to the neighborhoods and the people that live in those neighborhoods and have trouble parking on their own. I'm willing to work with the city and the mayor on finding different ways that we can bring some affordable housing into the area, but there's also many things we can work with the state to try to do that. Development is a big issue, and overdevelopment is a big complaint from people on the doors, and we'll have to work on finding different ways to go about better housing.
Thank you. That actually segues nicely into our next question. So we're going to start with Mr. Lyons. What can the City Council do to address the resident concerns about overdevelopment?
So when people talk about overdevelopment, I think there are different ideas and notions about what the overdevelopment is. I think what people really have a hard time with is when somebody has a postage stamp size lot, or they may have 2 lots, and then they want to build a 4-story structure or with no parking or barely any parking. And that's the kind of overdevelopment that people really have a hard time with. I'm not an anti-development person. I believe that, especially in Ward 4, there are a lot of areas where we need to develop, and we need to upgrade what we have in some of those areas, and bring more affordable housing to the ward. As far as the overdevelopment goes, I think people are just afraid of seeing some of the projects that they have coming down and building things that just don't fit into the neighborhoods. I don't know when the last time a developer came in and wanted to put a neighborhood in. When you build a single-family house, then you're building the community. when you're building apartment buildings and condo buildings, it's more of a transient community that's going to be living in there. It also is, a lot of times it's families who are just starting off, and that puts a burden on our school system. The elementary schools are bursting at the seams already, and putting a burden on our teachers and our educators. And we need to do something about that, as well as bringing more common sense development and with community cooperation into the neighborhoods. And I'd be looking forward to working with the mayor on that.
Thank you. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
What can the City Council do to address resident concerns about overdevelopment?
Okay. The city council or the city?
City Council.
City council. The city council actually has the ability to request new zoning laws, and we actually just did some of that recently in the last couple meetings ago in the city council for recreational marijuana, with the concerns that so many of them are trying to be put into Ward 2 and Ward 4. We have two already, a medical and a recreational one in the city, and they're trying to put 2 more in Ward 4. So we're going to try and create zoning to fix that. That's one thing, and if people can reach out and let us know how they feel about it so that we can push it forward. And then as city councilor, I've been working all summer with the planning department, because we have a thing called the transit-oriented development, which is it's pretty scary actually. It's coming to December 31st this year, and it's going to change the zoning laws by the state mandating that we have to do an overlay half-mile around Quincy Adams, and that's going to bring in huge developers that are going to try and buy up and build larger units. So I've been working closely with the planning department to, for lack of better words, carve out all these neighborhoods that I don't want to see affected, because there's some great neighborhoods over there in Liberty Street area, all the way up to Sterling. There's a big triangle there that comes down along Center Street. And so we're trying to make sure that those neighborhoods are kept out of that, and that we can try and go more into Crown Colony, so we can keep it lower and control it, because it is something that's an issue, and I've been working very hard at it. Sorry, I'm out of time.
Thank you. Our third question, Councillor Levine will be answering first. How would you help improve the safety of pedestrians and cyclists in Ward 4?
Okay. Improving safety and cyclists. First thing is that I've been working very closely with the new chief of police. He's created a new task force that has officers that are geared just for traffic control. I spoke recently about it, that they were just on one of our streets around the corner, and they're just there to make sure to slow people down and stop people from taking illegal turns. And some of these problems are when somebody takes an illegal turn on red, or is driving down the wrong road when they're not supposed to be. These are causing pedestrian and bicycle issues. So that would be one thing that I've been working on, to control speed and control where they're driving. And then another thing is that Quincy Cycles is a very big advocate for working with the state and federal guidelines to try and protect everyone. So I will continue to follow suit with them and support them, and to make sure that all the new stuff and the ideas that come down, we'll look at it and make sure that we can continue to help with that. I know that we have some new bike lanes. One of them is we're coming all the way from Boston, that we're trying to create, that will get all the way up into the Blue Hills on Ricciuti Drive. That area should be nice and a lot safer. And then I've seen other things where they paint them green. I don't know if that's something that I've seen some of the Boston and stuff like that. They make them more clear instead of just a single line. But these are things we can work on. I think I'm about to run out of time, but mostly I would definitely like to work with Quincy Cycles because I have a few friends on there and they love bicycling and they really look out to make sure people are safe. And I'm out of time. Thanks.
So I think this is an issue that has many different components to it, especially in Ward 4. Ward 4 has an inherent problem with traffic as it is. We range from East Milton Square going down to Archbishop Williams. We surround the Southeast Expressway, and we find ourselves that we're the cut through for a lot of people going through it. And every traffic situation has different problems and different solutions to it. You can go to the Bryan Ave, Upton Street neighborhoods, going down to Governor's Road and Plymouth Ave. You can go to Independence Drive. You can go to Doble Street, Hayden Street coming out to there, Willard Street, and they all have different problems and they all have different solutions and things that we can work on doing for. I lived at 64 Willard Street for 36 years. A lot of times coming out of the front door or the side door, you were taking your life in your hands. And when people would come up with Corey Street to merge onto Willard Street, and they'd be flying through that stop sign. So there's a lot of big dangers out there for pedestrians as well as bicycles. I'm not against the bicycle lanes, but I think a lot of times they're not really built the right way. I've spoke to somebody who was recently hit by a car on his bicycle, and he may never be riding his bike again. And one of the suggestions he had is instead of putting the bike lanes just to fit them in on the street, just in order to get a bike lane on there, that they expand the sidewalk area to include a bike lane as well as a pedestrian sidewalk as well. We need to have safety in mind when we're putting bike lanes in. We just can't put in bike lanes just for the sake of putting in bike lanes. I think the safety problems are huge in Ward 4 in a lot of different neighborhoods, and we need to address the safety for pedestrians as well as bicycles, as well as the cars and the drivers in there. A lot of the people that are pedestrians and bicyclists are also driving cars in the neighborhood, and they need to be safe as well. So it's an ongoing problem that the ward is facing and will face for a long time, and we need to address it as it goes on.
Thank you. So our last question before the closing is one that we've gotten from residents. So Mr. Lyons, you'll go first. Has the Granite Links Golf Club been a good deal for the city? And would you support extending the lease if it comes up again? So you have 2 minutes.
So I'm not sure how much of a good deal it's been for the 50 years. It's for the 50-year lease that they already have. It's been 17 years, and they have 33 years left on the lease that they have. As far as I've heard, there's been one audit in those 17 years, and I'm not sure that we get the best bang for our buck out of the public land. That's some of the best public land in the Commonwealth of the state, of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. There are many different reasons why we should stop the 99-year lease from going forward as it is. There needs to be better oversight. There needs to be a community advisory board that it goes for the length of any 99-year lease. We could be 40, 50 years down the road when many of us, if not all of us, are not here. And a lot of those residents in the future will be looking back and saying, who approved all this things to happen? If they do build a hotel up there, they will be looking for a different second way in or out. And the only way is to do that is to go through residential neighborhoods, thickly settled neighborhoods that need to be involved in any kind of decision making that goes into that before any 99-year lease is gone. Ward 4 also needs a city councilor who's going to be an independent voice and be able to speak on this. Our current councilor is a bartender up there, and he's not allowed to speak on it, and we don't have representation and we don't have a vote. It's one of the biggest issues facing our ward, and I'm running to be able to represent the people of Ward 4 for this issue as well as any kind of issue. I will not recuse myself from anything, and we need representation. So.
Thank you. Councilor Devine?
Yeah. So I am a part-time bartender up at Granite Links, and last year after I was elected, I was informed by the city solicitor that I would have to recuse myself. And it wasn't so cut and dry, it wasn't simple that I would or wouldn't have to. As a matter of fact, I went to the state and asked the ethics board also, and they had to push it up to some higher people to make sure, because it was a home rule petition. So yes, I won't be able to vote on the 99-year lease. But with that being said, Scott Campbell, councilor at large, he grew up in Ward 4, and he has family and friends here. So I've spoken with him, and he already plans to be on the advisory board if he's elected onto it, which will be a huge asset for Ward 4 to represent it. I've followed it closely, and anytime that somebody needed direction, I'm able to guide them in that direction. I just can't vote on it. When Granite Links first came on, yes, it was a great deal for the city because we were spending money and losing money, and then they took over and they created it. So at the point where we are now, up till now, we've been getting some really good money from them. Going forward, I'm not exactly sure how that's going to play out, but I know that we have eight city councilors that are all highly qualified. 3 are councils at large that will stand up and represent everybody in Ward 4. I've been working so hard for everybody in Ward 4 that I'm kind of disturbed that I'm criticized so hard for this, because this is something that's very important to the city. But it's not the only thing that's happening in Ward 4. I have hundreds of things I've been dealing with Ward 4, personally, for everyone. So those people I've been helping, you know who they are, and I help everyone. So thank you, I'm out of time.
Thank you, councillors. We're going to move on to closing statements. You'll have 1 minute. Councillor Devine.
I'm first?
Yes.
Okay. So I've been working 1 minute, right? Thanks. Like I said, I've been working very hard. This is a serious position. I've taken it very seriously. There's nothing that I'm not willing to do and take care of every single resident that's living here. I'm not just reaching out to the voters, I've reached out to every single person that I can find in Ward 4 to try and help them with everything. A lot of the things I've been working on are even simple, as far as, this is going to go fast. Lincoln Hancock, I've been trying to get a daffodil program so that the first graders can come down and plant flowers at Shea Park. I know it sounds small and trivial, but someday that first grader will walk by and see a field full of daffodils, and he'll respect the fact, or she, that they're part of their community. And when they're 15 or 16, and they'll recognize that they're part of it. These little things are what I'm trying to connect with our community and answer everybody's needs. I'm out of time, sorry. I asked for your vote.
So I believe that I'm the best person that can represent Ward 4. I will not recuse myself from any issue. I'm willing to do anything I have to do to be able to represent the people of Ward 4. I'm not asking any other city councilors to represent you. My commitment is that I will be representing you. I've spent my career with the IBW 2222 representing working families against major corporations, as well as other working families against other corporations, and my stripes aren't going to change. I don't need a job from the city. I don't need a job from the golf course or anybody else. I'm running to represent you. As far as the marijuana shops go, it's nice that the councilor and the councilor from Ward 2 brought up the resolution to change the zoning laws, and that needs to happen. But my opponent did not show up at the zoning board meeting to represent the ward, and he didn't send out notifications to the surrounding neighborhoods for that. I promise you that I will keep in touch with the neighborhoods for all issues. Thank you, and I ask for your vote November 7th.
Thank you so much to our candidates for Ward 4 City Council, Councillor Devine and Mr. Lyons. We appreciate you taking the time to be here with us tonight, and good luck in the race.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next we have Councillor DeBona, City Councillor at Large, Noel DeBona. We're going to start with a 1-minute opening statement, move into our 4 questions, and then have a 1-minute closing statement. So welcome, and we'll start your opening statement.
I want to thank Liz and Amy for Quincy Votes and QATV for hosting this tonight. My name is Noel DeBona. I'm your current Quincy City Councilor at Large. I've been elected now for 10 years. I've first started on the school committee in 2013 and then got elected to the City Council in 2015. I've had the honor of serving as the Quincy City Council President over the last 2 years, 2022 and 2023. I live in the Marymount section of Quincy with my wife Neve, my 3 young children Tyler, Aiden, and Nora. They're 11, 9, and 7 now. They just had birthdays. And they all attend the Quincy Public Schools. And think of this one. We have one at Squantum, one at Atherton Howe, and one at Marymount. So all 3 different elementaries for 3 different kids. As you know, I think it's very important that we have a lot of strong education in our Quincy Public Schools. I think it's very important to have our public safety headquarters, public safety as our police and fire, and then our infrastructure improvements. I'm going to be going in, that's my 1-minute spiel, and I'm going to be going into a lot of questions, and I'm excited for tonight. Thank you.
Our first question is, increasingly, people are struggling to afford to live in Quincy. What policies would you support to help make it affordable to live here?
Very good question, Amy. And you know, over the last 10 years of being on the school committee as well as the City Council, very importantly, the Affordable Housing Trust. I'm on the Community Preservation Committee, the CPC. I've been the mayor, been the City Council's representative over the last 8 years. We've given funding out for affordable housing. There's also, we've done a lot of work with NeighborWorks over the years, as well as the Affordable Housing Trust. That's helped out the COVID funds as well, which we have done recently. As for affordability in the city of Quincy, we also have something that's also affordable besides affordable housing called workforce housing. It's the next tier up from the affordable housing, which will help out folks, just regular police officers, teachers, firefighters, just regular everyday blue collar people, just making that a little bit above that affordable housing trend. Obviously, we're a growing city. We've had a lot of revitalization as we grow, and we're really right next to Boston, so it can be an alternate avenue. As we say, affordability compared to Boston, I mean, $3,500 to $4,000 rents. You'll be in the range of $2,500 and $3,000 rents here in Quincy, and that's usually for like a 2-bedroom. As for the 1-bedrooms and studio apartments that we have, or dwellings that we have, we're looking in the 1800s to the 2200s, right around the T stations. What's very important is we need to grow our housing area around those T stations. Our 4 stops around those, and we've had initiatives and come from the state initiative for the MBTA to allow our growth around those T stations, which we look forward to do. As we revitalize those particular areas, we need to make sure that it's affordable for everyone in the city, whether you're raising a family or you're just getting out of college, or if you're just right into the workforce. So I hope I've answered that question for you, Amy.
Thank you. So our next question that all of our candidates are getting is, what can the City Council do to address resident concerns about overdevelopment?
Overdevelopment's been a topic that I've talked about over the last 10 years. Even as a school committee member, even as a school committee candidate in 2013, walking around the streets, overdevelopment's been the #1 pressing issue that I consistently hear. And now we're in a mayor race, and both candidates are out there hearing the same exact message out there: overdevelopment. As for the overdevelopment section of it, it's a case-by-case situation. I was involved with the hospital site, which is the old hospital up on Whitwell, and they started off with 600 apartments, and they ended up getting down to 465 units. We had to push back a lot, and we had to work with Foxrock to push down that number, and they kept on coming back for a situation of 465, and that was the compromise that we did. But for each, and then there was another one at 105 C Street that was up at 30 units, and we got down to 16 finally. We kept on going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. You're only as good as your neighborhood and you're only as good as the folks that go to the ZBA, the zoning boards of appeals, or planning boards to fight some of these particular projects. I've been involved with them, and I've spoken in behalf of the residents of the city. At the end of the day, you are the residents and the constituents of the city vote me in. And as a citizen, I need to represent you. And to do that, I have to go with what you think. And I've come into the ZBA meetings and spoken in behalf of the constituents and the folks in the neighborhoods. What I'm big on is the biggest thing for overdevelopment is we need to do rezoning. And I'm going to be a proponent for the next term to do the rezoning. As an at-large counselor, I work with every city councilor, ward councilor, to find out what particular areas in each neighborhood need to be tweaked. Even though I'm not, even though it's three for three on the councilors at large, I consider myself still out there talking to folks and getting the consensus out there. So rezoning is a must in the next term. Thank you.
Our third question is the city doing a good job of getting community input on decisions? In your opinion, are there improvements to be made in this area?
Amy, good question. And there's always going to be improvements. Whether we're doing the most we can, we still have to make improvements. So we as a city council have a community engagement division, or a community engagement chair, committee, I guess we call them. And we need to have the neighborhoods across the city, all the different neighborhood associations and civic associations. They have to get involved with telling the city council or telling the different people in the higher ups, whether it be the mayor or the city council or the school committee members, about the community outreach. I think it's between all three channels. It's the mayor, the city council, and the school committee members, as well as the higher ups, the superintendents, the department heads. I remember a few years ago, pre-COVID, we did these neighborhood meetings in between the neighborhoods. Ward 1 would do it, then Ward 3 would do it, and we would have these neighborhood community meetings, and we'd have department heads go out and just basically talk about, okay, these are the streets that we're going to pave, and these are the sidewalks we were going to do, and these are the trees that we need to be done, and it would have a community involvement. Post-COVID, since we've gotten past the COVID now, and we still have folks that are still getting COVID, unfortunately, is we need to bring that back and do these neighborhood. We were doing them in the schools. We had them at Marymount School. We were having them at Broad Meadows. I know Ian Kane over in Ward 3 was doing his over at Wallaston School. And we would have these neighborhood meetings, and they would be the community outreach. We would bring our ward police officers out and just have, I remember Lieutenant Dan Mitten, who's now going to be the Ward 5 counselor, came out to Ward 3 and talked about the break-ins that were happening in Ward 3. That's something that we need to go back to post-COVID after March of 2020 now.
Great,
I hope I answer your question.
Yes, thank you so
I'm
much.
out of time.
You're out of time. Okay, so this is our last question that came from the community, and then you'll have time for a closing statement. So has the Granite Links Golf Club been a good deal for the city? And would you support extending the lease if it comes up again?
That's a very good question, and a lot of folks have asked me that question and I haven't been able to give you an answer for it, and this is the reason why. Number one is we're still continuously working with Granite Links, and we're continuously working with Quarry Hills on renegotiating a good deal, a good package. You have to understand this is a negotiation process, okay? It's starting off with a 99-year lease. These folks have come in, the big dig, and did a revitalization, obviously, up in that particular area. I've continuously worked with both sides of the coin, both sides of the friends of Quarry Hills, as well as the folks that work up there. We need to find a consensus as we get back onto the city council. As Brian Palmucci has moved into being a judge, he only gave me 3 weeks until it was pushed into the ordinance committee. As a president of the city council, I have to give the authorization to the finance committee, which is Chuck Phelan and Dave McCarthy, the ordinance chairs. Once it goes into both of those committees, I have to give the chair the right to continuously do meetings and do different outreach to folks. I only had a 3-week window between Brian Palmucci leaving the city council and going into our ordinance committee. We're still negotiating with Quarry Hills. I believe they gave a letter to us just recently over the last few weeks that they were going to do the ball fields over. and they were going to do the proper signage up there. Now, I know a lot of the folks from the Friends of the Quarry Hills, I've gotten a lot of different correspondence from them about, some of the things, they don't seem to be fair. Now, that's something that we need to go back to Quarry Hills and Granite Links and say, listen, these are what the folks have said. They have concrete information in front of us. How can we work this out and make this a good deal? Is it going to be a 99-year lease? I don't know if that's too much for the city or too much for them to have. We will continue to do discussions as we move into the next segment of my term, of a new term.
Thank you so much. I almost took your cue. Sorry.
You have 1 minute for a closing statement.
Okay, so I got 1 minute for a closing statement. I want to thank Amy and Liz and Quincy Votes and QATV for allowing me to speak tonight. Listen, I've been on the City Council now for the last 8 years, and I want to continue to be your counselor at large. I love being a citywide elected official, which I have the authorization to go across the whole entire city and roam and work with the different ward councils on different issues across the city. I'm here tonight. Unfortunately, my other two colleagues couldn't make it tonight, but I still made it. I'm still in front of you, and I'm still willing to give you the information and earn your votes here tonight. Looking into the next phase of things is the rezoning. I'm looking forward to the public safety headquarters being rebuilt. I'm looking forward to the Rick DeCristofaro Learning Center, which is going to have their grand opening this weekend. And I'm very excited about some of the initiatives that we've done in the past, like the bond authorization for our pension bond obligation, which was a huge vote for the city. We did it at the right time. And I want to thank everybody for listening tonight. I humbly ask for your vote on November 7th. My name is Noel DeBona. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us tonight. You can find more information on quincyvotes.org. Some important dates to remember are that October 28th to November 3rd, you can vote early at Quincy City Hall. November 7th is Voter Day, where you can show up to the polls from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. to vote. You can check your polling location at quincyvotes.org.